You've been told that a strong CV gets you the job. Clean formatting, relevant experience, action verbs, quantified achievements. That's the formula everyone was taught, and for a long time, it worked. But something shifted in the last 2 years. And it didn't shift because the rules of good writing changed, or because employers got pickier about fonts. It shifted because the first person reading your CV is no longer a person. And the second person, the human who finally does read it, is looking for something the old CV was never designed to show. So the question this video answers is this: what are employers actually looking for now? And why does it require a fundamentally different way of presenting yourself? If you're between 18 and 35, you are applying for jobs at the exact moment hiring systems are being rebuilt from the ground up. That puts you in an unusual position. You are trained by school, by career advice, by the people who hired you before, to compete in a market that is being quietly restructured around you. The people who graduated 5 years before you entered a market where soft skills were a nice to have. The people entering the market 5 years from now will probably find this restructuring complete and the new rules clearly understood. You are in the middle of it, which means the risk isn't dramatic. You won't be visibly rejected for the wrong reason. You'll just keep getting to the shortlist and not past it, or you'll get interviews that go nowhere, or you'll wonder why people with less experience on paper seem to be moving faster than you. This video is about understanding the mechanism behind that, so you can work with it rather than against it. Here's a number worth sitting with. A 2023 survey by Resume Genius found that over 99% of Fortune 500 companies use applicant tracking systems, ATS, to filter candidates before a human sees the application. That number has been climbing since the early 2010s. But here's what changed recently. Those systems used to be relatively dumb. They scanned for keywords. A recruiter built a list: project management, Python, stakeholder engagement, and the software checked boxes. That's still happening, but it's being layered with something more sophisticated. The newer generation of hiring tools, and several large employers have already deployed these, don't just scan for keywords. They assess for something harder to fake: demonstrated capability and context. They're looking at how you describe your work, not just what work you list. They're scoring cover letters against rubrics. Some are analyzing work samples, portfolios, even video interview responses with AI-assisted evaluation before a human recruiter ever schedules a call. And underneath all of this is a shift in what the humans further up the funnel are being asked to prioritize. Because AI is changing what companies actually need from new hires. Now that you understand the infrastructure, here's why that matters for how you compete. Step 1. AI absorbed the baseline for most of the last century. Entry-level jobs existed for a specific reason. They were the bottom of a skill pyramid. You came in. You did the routine work: drafting basic documents, organizing information, producing first drafts, running standard analyses. And through that work, you developed judgment. AI has compressed that pyramid. A junior analyst who spent their first 2 years manually building spreadsheet models is now competing with an AI that builds those models faster and with fewer errors. A junior copywriter who learned the trade by writing hundreds of product descriptions is competing with a tool that produces 500 variations in an hour. This doesn't mean those jobs are gone. In many cases, they aren't yet, but it means the reason to hire a human for those tasks is changing. If AI can do the baseline, employers are no longer hiring to get baseline work done. They're hiring for something the AI doesn't have, and that changes the entire logic of what makes a candidate valuable. Step 2. The signal has changed. The old CV was optimized for a specific signal. I have done this category of task before. Therefore, I can do it again. Managed social media accounts for a team of 3. Conducted market research using primary and secondary sources. Assisted in the preparation of quarterly financial reports. These lines communicated: I am trainable. I have been in this environment. I can perform these functions. That signal still matters, but it's no longer the primary one. The new signal employers, particularly in competitive sectors, are trying to detect is harder to describe, but easier to recognize once you know it. It's something like, can this person operate at the edge of uncertainty? Can they take an ambiguous brief and produce something useful? Can they make a judgment call with incomplete information? Can they identify what the real problem is, not just execute on the stated one? Can they work with AI tools intelligently, knowing when to trust the output and when to push back on it? These are questions that a list of past tasks cannot answer. And they're becoming the primary filter. Step 3. Hiring systems are being rebuilt around that signal. Here's where it gets concrete. Companies rebuilding their hiring infrastructure are doing 3 things at once. First, they're using AI screening to filter out candidates who don't meet stated criteria, faster and more consistently than a human recruiter could. This is the ATS layer most people know about. Second, they're adding a capability layer on top. This might be a written exercise, a short work sample, a case question sent before the first interview. It looks like an extra step. It's actually the new primary filter. Think of a mid-sized consulting firm that, in 2019, would have screened CVs, done a phone interview, then a case interview. Now, many of those firms send a written diagnostic before the phone interview. You get a scenario, ambiguous, realistic, time-limited, and you write a response. An AI tool pre-scores it for structure, relevance, and reasoning quality before a human reads it. Third, the humans who remain in the process are explicitly briefed to look for things AI can't assess from a document: how you think when challenged, whether you can update your view in real time, whether you understand the domain you're applying to in a way that only someone genuinely curious about it would. The funnel is still a funnel, but the layers are different, and they're filtering for different things. Step 4. Most candidates are still optimizing for the old filter. This is the quiet mismatch. The advice ecosystem around job hunting, career coaches, LinkedIn posts, university careers services is mostly still optimized for keyword density, ATS formatting, and the logic of the old pipeline. That advice isn't wrong. You still need a clean, well-structured CV. ATS systems still exist and still scan for keywords. You should still do all of that. But candidates who stop there are optimizing for one layer of a multi-layer filter. The people moving fastest in the current market, in tech, in finance, in consulting, in well-resourced nonprofits, in government digital roles, are the people who understood, early, that the new question isn't, do I have the right keywords? It's, can I demonstrate the kind of thinking that AI cannot replicate, and that a junior hire can no longer outsource to a tool? That's the gap. And it's not about having more experience or a better degree. It's about understanding what the filter is now measuring, and then actually developing those things. Think about 2 people applying for the same role. Same degree, similar experience. Neither has worked at a recognizable company. The first person has a well-formatted CV. Keywords are present. They write a cover letter that restates the job description back at the employer. In the work sample, they produce something technically correct, structured the way they were taught. In the interview, they answer questions the way interview prep guides tell them to. They wait to hear back. The second person does all of the same baseline things: the formatting, the keywords, the correct structure. But they also understand that the work sample is the real filter. They spend more time on it than on the CV. They treat it as a thinking exercise, not a box to check. In the interview, when they're challenged on something, they update their answer rather than defending the first one. When they don't know something, they say so and explain how they'd find out. Both people are qualified on paper. The first person keeps getting to the shortlist and not past it, and can't quite figure out why. The second person gets offers at a rate that doesn't fully match their experience level on paper. The difference isn't talent. It's understanding which layer of the filter actually determines the outcome, and investing accordingly. Here's the mental model that ties this together. Think of every job application as having two documents. The first is the one you submit, the CV, the cover letter, the application form. The second is the one you perform, the work sample, the exercise, the interview, the way you respond when pushed. The first document gets you considered. The second document gets you hired. Most people spend 90% of their preparation time on the first document and almost none on the second. That's backwards now. The practical shift is this. Before you apply to any role you care about, find or reconstruct the second document. Look at what the role actually requires someone to do, not just to know. Find a real problem from that domain. A case study, a live business challenge, something from the news, and write a one-page response to it. Not to send, just to practice producing clear, structured thinking under a realistic constraint. Do that 5 times for a domain you want to work in. And 2 things happen. First, you get genuinely better at the thing the new hiring filter is trying to detect. Second, and this is the part most people miss, you start to actually understand the domain at the level required to talk about it clearly in an interview. Not because you memorized talking points, because you engaged with real problems. That's not interview prep. That's the thing itself. So, back to where we started. The CV you built for the old job market may not work for the new one. Here's why. The old CV was optimized to answer the question, have you done this before? But the new filter is trying to answer a harder question. Can you think clearly at the edge of what's uncertain? And a list of past tasks cannot answer that. The mechanism is straightforward. AI absorbed the baseline work. That changed what companies need from human hires. Hiring infrastructure is being rebuilt to detect that new thing, and most candidates are still preparing for the old filter. The one-sentence version, the job market shifted from screening for task history to screening for thinking quality, and the people who understand that are competing on different terms than everyone else. Now here's the question this video didn't answer. If employers are filtering for thinking quality, for judgment, for clarity under ambiguity, what does it actually mean to develop those things deliberately? Not as a personality trait, as a practice. Because the uncomfortable truth is that most of what we call education wasn't designed to build that. It was designed to build something else. That's the next video.